The first light of dawn stretched across the ranch, painting the dusty fields in pale gold. The wind whispered through the tall grass, carrying the faint scent of hay and horses. The rancher, a broad-shouldered man with weathered hands and a face etched by years under the sun, was making his usual rounds. But something unusual caught his eye. A small, oddly shaped lump covered by a dirty, frayed cloth near the old barn. He paused mid-step, squinting against the morning glare. That cloth hadn't been there yesterday, nor the day before. Something about it felt wrong. His gut tightened, a warning he had learned to trust over decades of hard work. Slowly, he approached, boots crunching against the frost-hardened soil. Each step brought a mixture of curiosity and unease. What could someone leave here? A lost animal? Something valuable or something far worse? The rancher's heart began to beat faster, echoing in his ears. He crouched cautiously, hands hovering over the cloth. The wind shifted, and he caught a faint, almost imperceptible sound. A soft shuffle like a small animal stirring. He froze. His mind raced, imagining every possible scenario, none of them comforting. Who's here? He muttered under his breath, voice hoarse in the quiet morning. There was no answer, only the faint rustle of the cloth against the rough wooden floor of the barn. He glanced around the deserted yard. The horses munched lazily in their stalls, oblivious. The distant mountains stood silent, as if holding their breath with him. There was no one else in sight, yet the unease clung to him like a second skin. The rancher reached out, fingers trembling slightly, and touched the edge of the cloth. It was heavier than expected, dense in a way that made his stomach churn. A shiver ran down his spine. Something was definitely under there. Something alive? Or worse, something that had been abandoned for a reason. His instinct screamed at him to leave it alone, to turn away and forget he ever saw it. But curiosity, that dangerous companion, held him in place. He tugged gently at the corner of the cloth, trying to catch a glimpse of what lay beneath. And then he felt it, a subtle, almost imperceptible shift, as if whatever was under the cloth had noticed him. His breath caught in his throat. Something was hiding. He was about to find out exactly what. The rancher's hand hovered over the cloth, hesitating for a moment as a chill ran down his spine. Every instinct screamed at him to step back, to leave whatever lay hidden undisturbed. But curiosity had a grip on him stronger than fear, and slowly, carefully, he lifted the edge. A flicker of movement startled him. His heart slammed against his chest as his eyes caught a glimpse of something horrifying. It wasn't an animal, not exactly. It was smaller than he expected, but unmistakably human. The cloth had been hiding a fragile form curled tightly on the cold ground, shivering. He froze, the world narrowing to that single bundle. The first realization hit him like a punch. Whoever or whatever it was, it had been left here intentionally. And now it was exposed to the harsh morning air, utterly defenseless. The rancher's throat tightened. He swallowed hard, trying to steady his trembling hands. The creature beneath the cloth moved again, a faint whimper escaping from it. A child? A small, broken child? His mind raced as he crouched closer, heart hammering, eyes straining to adjust to the dim shadow beneath the barn roof. "What happened to you?" he whispered, voice rough, hoarse, but soft enough not to frighten it further. The bundle shifted slightly, tiny limbs brushing against the dirt, and his stomach knotted. He could see now the pale skin, streaked with dirt, and what looked like bruises. The thought of leaving this child here, abandoned and alone, made his blood run cold. He tugged gently at the cloth, just enough to see more. The face beneath it was hidden in shadow, but the small hand, trembling uncontrollably, gave away the truth. Someone had left this child here, and they weren't coming back. Rage, fear, and guilt all surged within him. How could anyone be so cruel? And worse, what if he had found this too late? A low, instinctual growl of frustration escaped his lips. He glanced around the empty yard, wishing for someone, anyone, to help. But there was no one. Only him, the child, and the growing realization that whatever he did next might determine life or death. The rancher made a decision. He would not let this child suffer another moment. Carefully, he began to lift the bundle, cradling it against his chest. The weight was lighter than he imagined, fragile and almost feather-like. His heart ached with the enormity of the situation. Whoever had done this, they had underestimated the rancher's resolve. And in that frozen morning light, a silent promise formed in his mind. He would protect this child. No matter the cost, the rancher carried the child toward the barn, his boots crunching against the frost-hardened ground. The little one trembled violently, curling closer into his chest as if trying to make herself disappear. The rancher's mind raced, searching for answers. Who would leave a child here exposed to the cold and danger, and why? He set her gently on a bale of hay inside the barn, the warmth of the morning sun filtering through the cracks in the roof, offering little comfort. The child's eyes, wide with fear and confusion, met his, and something inside him clenched. He could see the bruises and dirt on her skin, the remnants of neglect and perhaps abuse. Every instinct screamed that she had suffered far more than a child should ever endure. Then he noticed it, the small, tattered note partially hidden beneath the cloth. He picked it up, hands trembling. The words were scrawled, messy and rushed. "Please, help her. I can't keep her safe. Don't let them find her." The rancher's stomach sank. This wasn't an abandoned child. Someone had tried to save her, to hide her from danger. But the danger was still very real. His mind flicked to the possibilities. Who were they? And what would happen if the wrong people discovered her hiding spot? The note's plea pressed on his conscience like a physical weight. He had to act. He looked back at the child, whose small hands clutched the edges of the hay bale, eyes darting nervously around the barn. Her lips trembled, and he realized she had been silent for too long, not trusting anyone to protect her. The rancher's resolve hardened. Whoever had left her here had counted on someone cruel finding her, or worse, leaving her to fend for herself. A noise outside startled him, rustling footsteps, faint and hurried. Whoever was out there could be coming back. He had to move quickly, but he also needed to understand the full truth of what he was facing. Carefully, he checked the child for more injuries, noting the marks that told a story of fear, pain, and desperation. Every bruise, every tear-streaked cheek was proof of a life interrupted too soon by cruelty. The rancher's hands tightened into fists. The hidden truth was clear. This was no ordinary abandonment. Someone had risked everything to hide her, yet the threat remained. And the clock was ticking. Whoever left her or whoever was searching for her would not wait. With grim determination, he lifted the child again. He would find shelter. He would protect her, and he would uncover the full story before it was too late. The barn door creaked violently, and the rancher froze, the child clutched tightly against his chest. Outside, the sound of hurried footsteps grew louder, crunching against the frost-covered ground. His pulse raced. Whoever or whatever had left her here might have returned, and the threat was real. He ducked behind a stack of hay bales, trying to shield the child from view. The child pressed herself against him, shivering not from the cold but from fear. Her tiny hands gripped his jacket, nails digging in, as if anchoring herself to safety. The rancher's jaw tightened. He would not let anyone hurt her, not now, not ever. A shadow appeared at the barn entrance. A figure, tall and imposing, scanned the yard. The rancher's eyes narrowed. It was clear this was no stranger seeking help. This was someone looking for control, someone who meant harm. The figure's eyes flicked toward the barn, suspicion growing. The rancher's mind raced. He needed to act before the child was discovered. "Show yourself," a gruff voice demanded from the doorway. Fear and anger laced the words. The rancher knew he couldn't wait. Slowly, deliberately, he stepped into the light, keeping the child pressed against him. The figure froze, recognition flashing across their face. "You found her." They spat, anger and frustration mingling in a low growl. "She's not yours." The rancher's eyes hardened. "She's not anyone's to hurt," he said firmly. "And I won't let you take her." Tension crackled in the frozen air. The figure advanced, hands raised threateningly. But the rancher stood his ground, every muscle coiled and ready. He didn't have the luxury of hesitation. Years of working the ranch had taught him how to face danger head-on, and he knew he would have to use every ounce of strength and cunning to protect the child. A sudden lunge from the figure forced him to sidestep, nearly losing his grip on the child. Heart pounding, he shoved the intruder back, creating just enough space to retreat toward the barn's inner corner. The child whimpered, clutching him tighter, and he whispered, "Stay calm. I've got you." Outside, the cold wind howled, as if echoing the violence of the moment. The rancher's eyes met the intruder's once more. And in that brief glance, they both knew this confrontation would decide everything. Failure was not an option, not when the child's life hung in the balance. The intruder hesitated for only a moment before lunging again, fury in every movement. The rancher barely managed to deflect the strike, his arms straining as he shielded the child. Panic surged through him, a cold reminder that every second counted. He could feel the weight of delay. The longer he hesitated, the greater the danger. Outside, the sound of approaching hooves echoed through the frosty morning air. Reinforcements? Or more trouble? The rancher couldn't tell. The child clung to him, shivering uncontrollably, tears streaking dirt from her cheeks. The rancher's heart ached. Every moment of inaction, every second he had spent hesitating could have cost her life. He forced himself to think. He needed a plan fast. Using the barn's shadows as cover, he pivoted, keeping the child pressed against his chest, and moved toward the back exit. The intruder snarled, frustration mounting, and the chase intensified. Each step was a gamble, each breath a struggle against the tightening grip of fear. Then it happened. The intruder's hand caught on the child's jacket for a split second. The rancher's body tensed, a flash of panic shooting through him. If he lost his grip, if 1 second of hesitation occurred, it could be too late. He gritted his teeth, summoning every ounce of strength, and wrenched free, breaking the hold. The child gasped but didn't fall, and he whispered, "It's okay. Stay with me." But the cost of delay was already evident. Bruises on her arms, tiny cuts from the rough barn floor, tears still fresh on her cheeks. He could feel the weight of each one as if it were on his own shoulders. The intruder's anger intensified, and the rancher realized the truth. The danger wasn't just in physical harm. It was in the time wasted, the moments lost before he acted. Every second mattered, and hesitation had brought them closer to disaster. With a final surge, the rancher bolted toward the barn's side gate, using the shadows and uneven ground to his advantage. The child clung tightly, fear still in her wide eyes, but a fragile spark of trust had begun to form. The intruder stumbled momentarily, giving the rancher just enough distance to put the child somewhere safe. Breathing heavily, heart pounding, he glanced back. The intruder was still coming, but he had learned something vital. Waiting, hesitating, even for a heartbeat, could cost a life. And now he would move forward with no hesitation, no doubt, until the child was safe. The rancher finally found a quiet, secluded corner of the barn, away from the intruder's reach. He laid the child gently on a pile of clean hay, wrapping her in a thick blanket he had kept for the cold mornings. Her small body shivered less now, lulled by the warmth and safety of his presence. She buried her face into the fabric, still silent, but the panic in her eyes was slowly giving way to a fragile trust. For a long moment, the rancher simply watched her, letting the adrenaline ebb from his body. The danger hadn't vanished entirely. The intruder could return, and whoever had left her there might still be involved. But for now, in this quiet barn, there was a fragile peace. He allowed himself a deep, slow breath, the weight of the morning pressing down on his shoulders. He thought back to the cloth that had hidden her, the cruel secrecy that had nearly cost her life. How easy it would have been to pass by, to ignore the lump and assume it was nothing. But he hadn't. He had acted, and that action had made all the difference. His chest tightened with a mixture of relief and lingering fear. The child stirred slightly, blinking up at him with tear-streaked cheeks. For the first time she spoke, a small, hesitant voice barely above a whisper. Thank you." The rancher's heart ached at the fragility in her tone. It was more than gratitude. It was a quiet plea for safety, a trust he vowed never to betray. He looked around the barn, imagining what could have happened if he had arrived even moments later. The thought made his stomach churn. Time had been cruel, but he had been quicker. Yet the memory of hesitation would not leave him easily. He made a silent promise. He would protect her, not just for the rest of the day, but for as long as it took for her to feel safe again. Outside, the ranch stirred to life, horses neighing softly, and the wind carrying the scent of hay and earth. The rancher glanced toward the horizon, where sunlight now painted the landscape in warm golds and deep shadows. In that moment, he understood the weight of responsibility, not just for this child, but for every life he encountered. Protection, courage, and swift action mattered more than anything else. The intruder did not return, at least not today. Perhaps they would learn, as he had, that some lives were not so easily broken. The child slowly relaxed into the blanket, the trembling fading, and a faint, hopeful smile touched her lips. The rancher reached down, brushing a strand of hair from her face, and whispered, "You're safe now. I won't let anything hurt you." As he stepped back, letting her rest, the rancher felt a quiet satisfaction mingled with lingering tension. The barn was calm, the child unharmed, and yet the morning's terror remained a stark reminder. Life could change in a heartbeat, but courage, action, and care could make the difference between despair and survival. And in that golden dawn, with frost melting under the sun, the rancher knew one truth above all. Sometimes, the smallest act of bravery could save a life and change everything.